Hey everybody, welcome to the Basis Points Podcast. I'm Kevin Flanagan, head of fixed income strategy at Wisdom Tree Asset Management. Staking a claim with inverted yield curves. That's what we don't want to talk about this week. Now remember when an inverted yield curve used to predict recessions? And here we are about 2 years removed from the Treasury yield curve moving into negative territory, and the U.S. economy is yet to move into recession territory. If anything, the economy's resilience has certainly been a surprisingly welcome development, and it's left many a market participant wondering what happened. Indeed, history has shown us that the track record of inverted yield curves predicting a recession was almost foolproof. Now, I certainly don't want to put a whammy on things, but if you're wondering why an economic downturn is yet to occur, perhaps you don't need to look any further than the relatively solid labor market setting. There's no question the monthly employment situation report is essentially either 1 or 1A in terms of importance, not just for the money and bond markets, but for the Fed as well. Recently, inflation data has snuck into the top category also. We'll leave that for another podcast. Another set of employment numbers that is rather useful to focus on is the initial jobless claims series. Now, this report comes out weekly, and it offers investors and the policymakers a more real-time look at labor market trends and developments. In addition to that, it's one of the 10 leading economic indicators. And this series has captured its own fair share of headlines since the Fed began its aggressive rate hike cycle, as people were looking for clues as to any adverse impact that this tightening episode may have had on the labor markets. And once again, in a surprising fashion, the level of new weekly unemployment claims has remained historically low, despite the rise in interest rates. Now, there have been periods in the last year or so when the level of new claimants would rise unexpectedly, but then in future reports, the number would come right back down again. But more recently, the weekly reading rose to a 10-month high watermark, and what did you know? There was some chatter that this increase could finally be the sign that the labor markets may be beginning to soften up. Well, maybe that does prove to be the case, but I thought it would be a good idea to put the level of jobless claims into some perspective and not rush to any conclusions. And I think in order to get a more accurate picture, I decided to go back and look at the 40-year period prior to COVID for some guidance. Interestingly, this also coincides with many analyses regarding the inverted yield curve and the recession relationship. So, what does one discover about the current reading of 238,000 new jobless claims? Well, two very important factoids. First, it's at least 100,000 or more below the levels that existed prior to the past 4 recessions. Number two, it is 125,000 below the average level of claims over that 40-year period. So while the monthly inflation data may be getting top billing of late, investors should also remember the importance of labor market trends and its impact on Fed policy. And this was a point Chairman Powell reiterated at the June FOMC presser. And it's against this backdrop that the weekly jobs claims report can serve as a useful indicator for investors to focus on. And as yet, as we're seeing, still not flashing any warning signals. So I'm going to end it there. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and be well.